The IMF just dropped a report that is shaking the entire economy, and I've been getting questions. They say that Naira is undervalued by about 25.6%. So what it means is that right now, with dollar hovering around 1,360 to about 1,400 on the streets and on the official windows. But according to the IMF's models, the fair value of the Naira should be closer to 1,131 to 1,142 per dollar. So that means Naira is secretly stronger, okay, than the market is treating it. Is this good news? Will prices finally drop? Or is this another trap? So my idea today is to break this down from different perspectives, from government's perspective, the central bank's perspective, for businesses, importers, exporters, and even for folks in the diaspora. And I've been receiving questions. Should you buy, hold, or sell the dollar? Right? So if you're feeling the heat of inflation or struggling with high costs, or you're just tired about the entire narrative, the Naira is crashing, then let's have a conversation. This is for you. This video is for you. So like this video, subscribe, and drop your comments. Do you believe Naira is undervalued? So let's dive in. So first, what does it mean for Naira to be undervalued? So the IMF uses something called the real effective exchange rate. And what it does is that it compares the Naira to our trading partners' currencies. So think about the Chinese yuan, the USD, and all of that currencies that are major trading partners to Nigeria, and adjust those currencies for inflation. So a 25.6% gap would then mean that the currency is cheaper than economic fundamentals suggest it should be. So despite the FX reforms that we've seen since 2023, the unifying of the exchange rates, floating the currency more freely. So the Naira has seen significant growth or appreciation to about 32% or thereabout in 2025. But the IMF is saying there is still a gap and there's still more room for the Naira to strengthen. And that's also IMF showering praises on the Tinubu's administration for the economic reforms, removal of fuel subsidy, tighter monetary policy, and improved reserves. The economy is also growing at about 4%. That's the latest GDP figures, 3.89. All right. So the economy is growing at about 8%. Inflation is also coming down from the crazy highs that it had been. But market isn't convinced yet. So we're seeing parallel rates, oil volatility, we're seeing the global shocks. So this isn't some magic, but it's a signal that with stability, the Naira will strengthen, and this whole issue of expecting the Naira to depreciate further would gradually ease out. So let's look at this whole question from the government side. So first is that the government is going to claim this as a big win. It's a big win for credibility. President Tinubu's reforms are getting international thumbs up. So more investors are expressing confidence in the economy. We're seeing that increased flows to the capital market, portfolio inflows as well. Reserves are also building up. So government could say, hey, see, our reforms are working. All right. So our reforms are working. So, and they could say, hey, no need to panic. And one other good thing for government is that with the exchange rates at an undervalued level helps them with more revenue. Okay. If the Naira were to strengthen by that 25.6%, it means that government will lose about 25.6% somewhat from crude oil revenues because Naira obviously is then going to strengthen by that amount. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. So, in a way, you could hear government say, steady course, more reforms, and no reversals of current policies. So, that's the way I would like to look at it from the government's perspective. But from the central bank's perspective, this is also some form of ammunition, okay, for the Cardoso-led central bank, okay? They've been defending the floating regime, intervening smartly, and even building the reserves. And IMF is saying the forex market is now functioning better, okay, on market fundamentals. And CBN can slow reserve accumulations a bit, okay, if the undervaluation persists, or they can now begin to justify tinkering with the interest rate. But one thing to watch out for would be, sudden moves that could trigger issues, especially around that swap deal that we have with the UAE and, some of those swap transactions and other liabilities that the government has. So the CBN's job is price stability. Okay, so this undervaluation would suggest that there is room for gradual strengthening, which is also going to help with import costs long term without maybe killing local production. But on the part of the central bank, you might expect to see more open market operations and increase foreign exchange supply in the system. All right. Let's look at from the business perspective now for businesses, importers, and exporters. So for businesses, I see a mixed bag, but I'm leaning more towards a positive side if it is well managed. So for importers, for instance, it means cheaper dollars eventually. So your raw materials, machinery, drugs could ease, the cost could ease. So that means lower prices for consumers on imported goods. Fuel, we still do some imports on fuel and food components, agricultural equipment, and machinery. We will see the prices drop. All right. So we are not going to see that scrambling for scarce foreign exchange as we used to see. Okay. But short term, if Naira strengthens too fast, your existing stock, which is those inventories that you have, may lose value. Okay. They're going to lose value. Now, let's look at it from the exporters and manufacturers' perspective. A stronger Naira would mean that Nigeria's goods are going to become more expensive abroad. So think about our oil, our cocoa, cashew, and even services. Non-oil exports might suffer, all right? So local manufacturers competing with imports, so they're going to get squeezed if dollar gets too cheap. So, but overall, for businesses, predictability is going to be key. With stable, fairly priced Naira, it's going to mean well for planning. You're going to see less hoarding of dollars and more investment. So this is going to be some big wins for corporations and SMEs looking to unlock or have access to credit with more stable Naira and if Naira strengthens further. Now, let's look at the perspective of diaspora. Folks in diaspora sending remittances back home. So we have the reports has it that remittances account or yearly account for about $20 billion that come to the economy. So if Naira strengthens, one Naira would buy, I mean, sorry, $1 would buy fewer Naira. So it means that you have to send in more dollars. But think about it on the other side. The flip side is that cheaper imports will now mean lower cost of living. Okay. Your remittances will then go further on goods. And if the economy stabilizes, investment opportunities would increase. Real estate, stocks, and startups are going to become more attractive. And but IMF has noted that with this, we're going to see, I mean, increased acquisition of Naira assets, and we are not going to be seeing that dollarization of the economy, like, people taking flights to cryptos and all that. So that's the way it might impact diaspora remittances. Madam, let's look at the risks of have some, balanced view about this. So the IMS position is not like gospel, that it doesn't mean that this is going to happen. All right. It doesn't mean that their models are perfect. If government spends recklessly, we could see this shift. We could see a swing immediately. We're having elections coming up. So if government begins to spend recklessly, we might lose some of these gains. So it is the market that would eventually determine where Naira is going to trade. So we would need complementary policies. It's not just going to be FX tweak, that moves the needle. So we're going to need complementary policies on security. We're going to need complementary policies on power, on manufacturing, corruption, and all that to begin to, you know, steady the ship or move the economy in the right direction. So if you ask me, I would say expect Naira to move towards its fair value in the next 12 to 18 months. It's not something that I expect to happen almost immediately. So you can expect some form of volatility in the short term. So my advice would be, as always, hold a balanced portfolio. Hold some dollar assets, some Naira assets, if you may. Okay. Now, to the question that I've been receiving, and people have been asking me, should I buy, hold, or sell dollars right now? So first, I'm not your financial advisor. And this is not an investment advice. It's just general education around how currency works. So the currency market is unpredictable. It's unpredictable. What I say today can, in the next couple of hours, change with all the swings we've seen, the oil price, the geopolitical tension, and all that. Or even some of CBN's moves could also, alter the status quo as at a stage. So I would advise, do your independent research whenever you're taking an investment decision. But let's look at it logically, and I'm going to break it into three. So if you uh, if you have an immediate need for dollar, like school fees abroad, imports, medical bills, rent in dollars. Okay, so my idea would be hold or buy strategically on the dips. And I'll say strategically. So don't wait for some magic appreciation of the Naira. That's one. The second one would be for speculators who are trying to game or time the market perfectly, or make some form of arbitrage opportunity. So the undervaluation story suggests that there is more room for Naira to strengthen. So that means holding any dollar holding only dollar could mean that opportunity cost, especially now that we're seeing high yields on Naira assets, treasury bills, bonds. Effective yield on treasury bills, 1 year treasury bill now it's over maybe anywhere between 20 and 25%. We're also seeing decent returns on money market funds as well. So what analysts are saying is hold more Naira assets, maybe 60 to 80%, or 20 to 40% on dollars as a hedge. Okay. Then the third one is, should I sell my dollars? Okay. So if you've been holding dollars, say around current levels, 1,360 to about 1,400, and you believe in the reforms, so converting a portion into high yielding Naira asset could make more sense, right? Could make more sense because you're going to earn some return. But I would say I would say sell only a portion that you don't need immediately. Okay. That's the way I would look at it. So the IMF story is, to me, is bullish for the Naira, but it is not automatic and it is not gospel. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen the next day. All right. So that's my take on the subject. And if you like this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. And would you be buying, holding, or selling your dollar now? Let's know in the comment section. Thank you, and I see you next time. Bye.